An ancient civilization has been found beneath Death Valley, and mummified giants of the Paiute tribes. Traces of giants found in the desert. In 1947, a retired Ohio doctor allegedly discovered relics of an ancient civilization whose men averaged 8 to 9 feet tall in the Colorado Desert near the Arizona, Nevada, California line. Howard E. Hill of Los Angeles disclosed that several well-preserved mummies were taken from caverns in an area roughly 180 miles square, extending through much of southern Nevada. Hill said the discoverer is Dr. F. Bruce Russell, a retired Cincinnati physician who stumbled on the first of several tunnels in 1931. Not until recently, however, did Dr. Russell go into the situation thoroughly, Hill told The Luncheon. With Dr. Daniel S. Bovee of Los Angeles, Dr. Russell has found mummified remains together with implements of the civilization, which Dr. Bovee had tentatively placed at about 80,000 years old. Quote, "These giants are clothed in garments consisting of a medium-length jacket and trousers extending slightly below the knees. The texture of the material is said to resemble gray-dyed sheepskin, but obviously it was taken from an animal unknown today." End quote. In another cavern was found the ritual hall with devices and markings similar to those now used by the Masons. The Freemasons, that is. So far, Hill added, no women have been found. He said the explorers believe they found the burial place of the tribe's hierarchy. Hieroglyphs are chiseled, he added, on carefully polished granite. He said Dr. Viola Petit of London, who made excavations around Petra in the Arabian Desert, soon will begin an inspection of these remains. This was originally reported 1947 by the San Diego Union, recounted in Atlantis Rising, January to February 2002. San Antonio Express article relates how giant skulls were unearthed. Huge skulls, at least twice the size of today's normal human skull. Beach giant skull unearthed by WPA workers near Victoria, believed to be the largest ever found in the world. Normal head also found. They were found together. So these people, these giants, lived together with normal-sized humans. Giant skull believed to be possibly the largest found in the world, and the human skull shown on the right was recently unearthed in Victoria County by Texas University anthropologists, and the other two are of normal size. We've been lucky enough to find an image, one of the few images that is to be found on the internet, from a 19th century newspaper article. The photograph is clear enough to make out the fact that it's a giant exhumed body from 1869. It's a black and white photograph. One of the earliest photographs, I guess, that were taken at that time is pretty clear. 19th century newspaper reports most giant skeletons mentioned in the clips were dug from the mounds found all over the southeastern United States. The old news items often labeled them Indian skeletons, but it's obvious that these belonged actually to the mound culture people, the mound builders, who were living in the United States long before the Indians arrived. The Indians claimed that the mound builders, the mounds were already there. The old news item often labeled the Indian skeletons, but it's obvious that these belong to the mound culture people who were living in the United States long before the Indians ever arrived there. Giant skeletons unearthed at Athens, Georgia, thought to have been Indians of gigantic proportions. The skeletons of two Indians, they claim it's Indians, basically they have been found to be red-haired Caucasians, but this is what the article says. The skeleton of two Indians have been unearthed along the banks of Hawking River at Roach's Mill, 1/2 mile east of Athens. The excavation was made under a large building, a short distance from the bank of the river. Unearthed a few feet from the skeletons were many arrowheads, which no doubt were buried with the redskins when they were sent either by accident or natural death to the happy hunting grounds. The skeletons were eventually those of gigantic men. Judging by the bones, they could not have measured less than 7 feet in stature. The bones were in an excellent state of preservation, the teeth being still firmly embedded in the maxillary bones. We have to keep in mind that in about the mid-18th century, people were a lot shorter than they are today. I mean, they could have been somewhere between 4.5 to 5 feet tall was the average. Some of the interesting characteristics of these giant skeletons is that they were often red-haired, and often their foreheads slanted backwards immediately above the eye ridge, as the following skull found in Lovelock in Nevada, Lovelock Cave. Someone did take an image in order to preserve what the skull looked like. Many other bones were spirited away or destroyed by Darwinian marauders, who knows. The giant skeletons were often immediately turned over to the archaeological authorities, either to the local state natural museum, but often directly to the experts from the Smithsonian Institute in Washington. The skeletons, bones, and skulls were then taken away, yet strangely the Smithsonian nor the Natural State Museums have no record nor any exhibits of giant skeletons today or even yesterday. Is that why this curator is smiling like a Cheshire cat? In other words, they took these giant skeletons and hid them somewhere if they did not destroy them. So it's shameful. It's this shameful suppression of pertinent information having to do with the American archaeology, ancient America, historic academic institutions all over America and Western countries as well, find this to be scandalous. Thus far, never exposed to the mainstream media, which ought to jolt the conscience of every true historian to wake them up out of their quackademic slumber and innate trust in these self-proclaimed false authorities who have taken advantage of their gullibility to suppress true history almost 150 years in order to promote a false agenda for obvious reasons. Now, they're also in the New York Times of 1902 reports 12-foot tall giants in Guadalupe in Mexico. Los Angeles, February 10th. Owing to the discovery of the remains of a race of giants in Guadalupe, New Mexico, antiquarians and archaeologists are preparing an expedition further to explore that region. This determination is based on the excitement that exists among people of the scope of country near Mesa Rico, about 20 miles southeast of Los Angeles, where an old burial ground has been discovered that has yielded skeletons of enormous size. Luciana Quintana, on whose ranch the ancient burial plot is located, discovered 2 stones that bore curious inscriptions, and beneath these were found in shallow excavations the bones of a frame that could not have been less than 12 feet in length. The men who opened the grave say the forearm was 4 feet long, and that a well-preserved jaw and lower teeth ranged from the size of a hickory nut to that of the largest walnut in size. The chest of the beings reported as having a circumference of 7 feet. Quintana, who has uncovered many other burial places, expresses the opinion that perhaps thousands of skeletons of a race of giants long extinct will be found. This supposition is based on the traditions handed down from the early Spanish invasion that have detailed knowledge of the existence of a race of giants that inhabited the plains of what now is eastern New Mexico. Indian legends and carvings also in the same section indicate the existence of such a race of giants. This is an article on the New York Times, published February 11th, 1902. Now, we have such giants found all over the United States and Canada and Mexico, and all over the world, in fact. But we're talking now about the ones that have been found beneath Death Valley, this ancient civilization found there. Another old mystery of ancient civilizations unsolved in Death Valley, which may conceal underground cities that were described in Paiute Indian legend. The city apparently was first described 68 years ago in Burke Lee's books, Death Valley Men. In the book chapter Old Gold, Burke Lee describes a conversation which he had several years ago with a small group of Death Valley residents. At one point, two of the men, Jack and Bill, described their experience with an underground city which they claimed to have discovered in 1931 after one of them had fallen through the bottom of an old mine shaft near Wingate Pass. Besides, they claimed to have discovered preserved mummies of a race of men 8 to 9 feet tall in several caverns which they have followed about 20 miles north into the heart of the Paiute Mountains. Evidence of the lost civilization in Death Valley, in these mountains, the Paiute Mountains, came in a bizarre report of caves and mummies in Hot Citizen, a Nevada paper in August 5th, 1947. And these are some of the highlights from that article. A band of amateur archaeologists announced today they have discovered a lost civilization of men 9 feet tall in Californian caverns. Howard E. Hill, spokesman for the expedition, said the civilization may be the fabled lost continent of Atlantis. The caves contain mummies of men and animals and implements of a culture 80,000 years old, but more advanced than ours. One cavern contained their ritual hall with devices and markings similar to the Masonic order. A long tunnel from this ritual temple hall took the party into a room where well-preserved remains of dinosaurs, saber-toothed tigers, imperial elephants, and other extinct beasts were paired off in niches as of on display. The 32 caves covered a 180 square mile area in California's Death Valley and southern Nevada. According to Howard E. Hill, some catastrophe apparently drove the people into the caves. They went into the caves to protect themselves, obviously. So I'll leave a link below for you for all these. This is something that I find fascinating. There's too little work done concerning American archaeology, and it seems that a lot of these mummies and even the pyramids, the Grand Canyon pyramids and Death Valley areas, are found to be older than the pyramids of Egypt. So, and even bigger. So there's a lot of interesting information to be found, and as I find it, I will be posting videos for you who are interested in this. This is on UFO sightings and other links, and I'll leave links below for you in the description box.